Good morning, folks. Happy Friday. Thank God it's Friday. By the way, I'm doing my homage to Russ. I'm wearing a New York baseball cap and a hoodie. So we've got X surrounded. 2 baseball caps on each side. Sorry, you can't do that. Go ahead, X.
Doesn't work. Hello, everyone.
Oh, I don't get a pre-show tonight? Wow.
No. We have a pre-show. No. We have a
I like the pre-show.
Yes, go ahead.
Quick pre-show.
We have a pre-show.
So today was the release of Green Day's new album, and it's called Father of All, and I can't say the last word, but it's
MFers.
MFers, thank you. And I ran into Target to get it because I don't have a record store near me anymore.
Okay.
And, Target's open at 8 a.m. And so I went, I got the CD, I popped it in, I ate breakfast, I listened to the whole album. It has a book jacket. There is a lost art about that. People are buying vinyl, and that's great. And the ones that do, hey, hallelujah, good for you. There's so many that do digital that even downloading a digital booklet is not the same.
I mean, I know that vinyl was making a comeback, but do you remember back in the day? And people who are younger who are watching this, they didn't have like the thing to look forward to in terms of buying an LP, especially like the ones that I would buy, where it was like Genesis with the lyrics in the inside, or Yes albums with the
grandiose pictures from Roger Dean.
Yeah, the great art. But it was an experience to go to the store and buy the album, or in my case, go to the store, peel off a price sticker from a toy and put it on the album, and buy the album for $1.49 instead of $10.
You've always been a criminal, Mike. You've always been a criminal.
No. I had budgetary constraints.
I mean, if you want to do that, what you do is you go grab the album, you bring a bag with you from Kmart. You throw the album in the bag, you return the album, get the money for the album, saying that, and then go and buy the album again. That's the right way to steal.
God,
there's the wrong way.
That's worse than you. That's worse than me. Jeez.
No, that's the right. Because that toy now is not going to get bought, and that's going to mess up everything.
I actually worked and bought the album. That's what I would do. But the point is, even at my advanced age of 56, I felt like I was a teenager again, because I knew when an album was coming out, I could go and buy it. I've downloaded so much music, I have, but I still prefer, and I've talked to some musicians about it, and they agree that even a CD still, there is one site, it's called like HD whatever, I think it's called HD Music, HD something. If you download from them, it is the real recording, but also
that is, and who started that whole thing was Neil Young.
Yes, and that takes up half of your iPod. But
they're getting better. If you guys have ever downloaded in FLAC, FLAC, that's actual. If you ever want to download something in top quality, download in FLAC. Look it up. Say Green Day new album FLAC. Download. That's where you find it. Not that you should ever illegally download an album for sure, but I'm just saying that FLAC is the way to do it.
But I'm saying that at least the CD sound to me always sounds a little bassier. Always sounds a little better than digitally, and so I felt good. Like today was like a day like. There's not that many of those days anymore where you could go and get a release and go in and get it and like be excited about it.
That's really cool. I like that. I mean, we all, as an artist ourselves, like putting out records. I know one of the guitarists in my band just put out an album that he worked on with somebody else for a while. It's really good. It's a prog album. I mean, as soon as it's out, I'll let you guys know.
Yeah,
but when they're working on it and they're doing they're doing an actual, they're doing a record and they're doing the sleeve and they're having fun with that.
Yes.
We've done albums before. I've had fun with even the compact disc thing, which we would have fun with, which is still, not a lot of space.
But you know what it is also? Not every artist on some CDs, I've gotten literally just a paper sleeve and the case and the CD, but I like the bands like Green Day that still get it and put together that little booklet. So we have something else to look at.
And it's not just them getting it too, by the way. It is like an economical decision. Like they will make more money that way.
Yeah.
Like Taylor Swift just released a new album exclusively through Target, with different decorations on it and stuff like that. And that's, waiting till everybody in the world and the universe had been forced to buy her album. She went and then released another one.
But then there's things like this. and a friend of mine gave me this for Christmas a few years back. This is the Queen discology, the full box set.
Okay.
They put it in like really flimsy paper sleeves for the CD, so you can't put them like on a shelf. Not too many people put their CDs on shelves anymore, but right. I used to. But the thing is, I have to keep everything, the booklets and the CDs, in this clumsy box.
Yeah,
that can't fit anywhere. So I got this thing sitting up there. It's like they have to think about being, and you can't put them in jewel boxes either. So
right.
it's really inconvenient. So sometimes the CD is convenient. I mean, I prefer having the album, being able to read the lyrics off of it. And so sometimes you can get the lyrics in the booklets, but this is ridiculous.
Well, I think that some people love that kind of stuff. It depends what kind of collector you are. Like I've gotten different things like that too that I've enjoyed collecting. I'm not a big time collector of music. Obviously at the end of the day, you want it in a digital format because you can listen to it easier that way in so many different situations.
I mean, but I have some import CDs that are hard to get. I have some things like that. I don't know if the 20-year-olds care. Now, maybe with the excitement over LPs and they're doing different colors and stuff, maybe that's helping that. But, when you see this one thing, and I don't know whether it's on Instagram or Twitter or where I've seen it, but like album sales are beating, CD sales. And it's like, yeah, but you're not mentioning digital. You're not.
Right. Yeah. Man, no. And I think they do care. The ones who care about albums, and the bands that are making albums, a lot of bands are doing songs, like, so basically, if you're just releasing a song, you can still do artwork with that too. You can still have fun with that as well. But, I think it's interesting. Like, my daughter and son really don't know the concept of an album, like putting on an album, listening to it from beginning to end.
Well, that's another whole thing. That's a great
right. That's a whole other thing. And then
the theme of the album is lost on a lot of artists now.
Yeah. And to me, that was always, the one of the more fun things to do because I grew up listening to all those albums and like that. So I liked, actually what order you put the songs in on an album, putting little things between to connect the songs on albums, things like that we used to do so you could listen to the entire thing.
Yeah.
That is largely gone, but it shouldn't be because it's easier than ever to do it. And it's also
easier than ever. You're right.
It's easier than ever to do that kind of stuff. And it's also easier than ever to just release, okay, this is a digital version. So you don't have to worry about, there's something before it or behind it, so the radio station can still play it, that kind of thing.
I mean, this is the reality, and I basically took all my CDs, everything I bought on CD, and converted it to digital to put it on iTunes so I can listen to it on my computers. Problem is that I have an old receiver, and good nice pair of speakers. I haven't been able to listen to any of my music. Because the only thing I can plug into the old receiver is an iPod, and the sound quality is terrible. So I have to go.
Oh, it's not terrible on mine. You could work that.
Well, no, it's an old receiver. So and my brother has a stereo business in locally, so I'm gonna get a new receiver. But the thing is, it'll have like sort of Bluetooth capability where I can use iTunes or Spotify or whatever so that the music I won't even have to link anything. Right now if I don't have a working CD player, I can't listen to music on my stereo. So that's the but the thing is that the sound quality, I'm sure, is not the same quality as listening to an LP or listening to one of those gold-plated CD discs.
It's not the same, no.
Yeah. So
no, there's different. I mean, there's different, and I think
it's not like it's bad. It's just there's a little difference. That's all.
It's really subtle. I mean, I still have my dad's old Polk speakers, which he bought, years ago that were like $10,000 at the time, and I ended up with them, and they run our main room where I have my big wall like TV type thing. And and every once in a while I'll go to the Neil Young's I'll download some HD CD to listen to it through there. And it depends on it really depends on the way the CD's made too, because most of the CDs are now mixed for the MP3 format. So they're mixed, and by mixing something for that, there's compression stuff. They bring in highs and lows, so there's not the great louds and the great quiets that you would get. So if you want to listen to like a symphony orchestra, you can really like get some incredible stuff. That's the way. And like compressing a symphony orchestra is just sinful. You should never do that. But even some of those old, like, Yes albums and stuff like that, which had like incredibly quiet points to them, albums and really loud points, loud, quiet. That's something that, I think we don't see anymore.
I got an old pair of Bose bookshelf speakers with the wood cabinets, and those are great. Like, it's hard to read.
What are they, the Bose? I had the 901s. The Bose 901s.
Yeah, I think those are the 901s that
has its own little like amplifier that you have to use with it.
Oh, no. I don't, mine was the model below that.
Okay.
But then after that, they started, like, maybe 10 years after that, they started making them in plastic, and it affects the bass sound. It does.
Oh, it does. It usually does. And now, like, we have an Apple AirPod with our HomePod in our room, or an Alexa, whatever. You have like one speaker.
Yeah. I have one of those too. Yeah.
Simulating stereo, and something they do a pretty good job sometimes too. So
they're pretty good. But when you listen to it on the other thing and you hear the bass, then you realize, I should.
Yeah, it depends. It depends what you're doing. And the music in the back. Most people, 99% of the music is background music.
Right.
So to sit down and actually say, I'm going to listen to this album, just this album, for everything it's about. Most people never do that.
I can tell you this, and then we'll start the show. Yeah. And everybody knows I'm a big Genesis fan. On a certain song on the Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, riding the Scree. It's on side 4. There's a certain section where, when you have a great stereo system, the cacophony of sound saturates the speaker. It does. That's on an album. On a CD, they've leveled off the sound so it doesn't do that. That's what you lose.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I like Richards. I get up, I get down. All right. Okay. All right. So I'm not. When you're seeing the Flash things, I'm at the hospital right now where I'm in this room that they gave me, where my son's being treated for the next month.
It's not a press conference.
So I'm not. These are my fans taking pictures. Beyond, I appreciate you guys. Just put your cameras away. We're all good here. Actually, no, there's an alarm going off of some kind. It's like saying if you're this kind of a doctor, you should report to the second floor. So that's why that flash is going back. Hopefully that'll stop soon.
Yes. No. Anyway, we're not audiophiles, creepy Rob.
I think it's more important whatever's happening on the second floor than my flashing.
No, and sometimes my cat is in my sunroom right now, and she sometimes sleeps on that speaker, but I do use them once in a while. I can't use them every day for the exact reason X said, and that's where I just put it through the computer or put it on the other. Like
there you go. Perfect. All right, let's get going here. Ready?
Yep.
All right. What's the date?
Friday, February 7th.
Thank you. Wow, it's Friday. It's been a week. All right. Hello, Hockey World. It's Friday, February 7th, 2020.
I'm Michael Agello, and I'm wearing a hat.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund, and you're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday. At this time, to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world, we have a lot of things that happened last night in the hockey world, getting ready for a lot of things that are happening soon here. But I wanted to start with a rumor, and that I got last night, and I followed up more this morning, and it's a really interesting one for you, Russ, too. And I wrote about it today. It is this: I'm starting to hear from other teams that Kreider is not available, that the Rangers are telling them that they are working very hard to re-sign him. Now,
they did start yesterday,
and that this has been and that it's been going on, and it's not just talk. Now that's what I actually is the question I want to ask you. Is it just talk? Are we just looking at like a situation where they're saying, okay, that the Rangers are not liking what they're getting, because they've obviously been listening to offers.
Right.
They're not liking what they're getting. And they're going to say, we're just going to resign him. Or is this the kind of situation like the Rangers are playing out, where they're saying, okay, Kreider's a great player. He's a good guy. We want to keep him around. He's a big part of our team. He's a leadership core here. The young kids want to keep him here. The young kids don't like him being like, there was definitely, I think there's been some upheaval in the Rangers room about him being on the trade block so much so that, some of the other younger players are like, we really don't want him to see him go. What do you think's happening? What do you think it is?
Well, I mean, I'll also go with what Larry Brooks said yesterday, where he did say they were negotiating, and it did say this took way too long. And so my feeling on it is, like, they probably had an idea of a baseline number, right? And neither of them liked it, so they probably let it sit for a while.
Yeah.
But now to try and hammer out a deal in just 2 weeks is a hard thing to do. And that's my worry is, I think he should stay a Ranger. I think he should be the next captain, but when you're trying to hammer out a deal in 2 weeks, that is going to be the biggest deal of a guy's career, you could come up against the gamut of the deadline and then have to sort of make a decision if you're not making any progress. And I think that could happen. There's going to be a chance now that he gets signed, but I think the chance of this deal dragging on and the Rangers now having to make a decision, what do we do? Because if we can't sign him, then we just lost assets on him. That's going to be the tough decision, and he's probably not going to be available until that last day or two, where you really have an idea of what the number is and does it fit into their picture. Honestly, I don't know what their future plans are that didn't include Chris Kreider. That puzzled me anyhow.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what they're doing is, and maybe they strategically waited until this long because they wanted to hold his feet to the fire. They wanted to have him take the type of deal in terms of term or in terms of salary that they think fits in for him. And they're putting the pressure on him because he's never played for anybody other than the Rangers. He probably loves playing in New York.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Maybe he comes back there, but I get the feeling that if they trade him, he's probably going to go someplace else. And I mean, to me, this is sort of like reading out like what happened with Matt Duchene with Ottawa. They talked contract with him. You heard that he wanted to stay there because I think it's from Northern Ontario, close to where Ottawa is, close to where Montreal is. And then in the end, Ottawa traded him. Right now, Kreider is the number one name on the trade list.
Right
now, this could also be, teams backed off after he got hurt. And maybe they weren't going to give the Rangers the price tag like the Hayes deal last year that they thought they at least deserved for Kreider. And, maybe they believe that teams will up their offers when it gets closer to the deadline. And there's no harm in talking to his agent right now and seeing what the parameters are, because if they take a contract that they like, or if they'll accept the contract that they like, then they sign him. But I think they're using the 2 weeks. We got 17 to 8.
I mean, why shouldn't they? It doesn't feel too dissimilar to like the Marty St. Louis situation years ago. Where that was the day of the trade deadline. Suddenly he was moved. And everybody kind of thought he was going to be moved, but the Rangers were saying maybe we move him, maybe we don't move him.
I think the issue is term more than anything because he's 28. I don't think they want to give him 8 years. Now, if he's stuck on 7 or 8 years, I don't think they're going to give him either one of those.
I think it's going to be a contract similar to Van Riemsdyk or Hayes. It's going to be shorter term because he is 28, but it's going to be more AAV. And I think that's the problem with them because who do they have to pay coming up? They have to pay Zibanejad. They have to pay probably Adam Fox in a year or two. They have to pay D'Angelo next year.
Yep.
Now we know that they may trade a Brady Shea. They may buy out somebody. But
I remember in the year Lundqvist drops off too.
Right. But Brendan Smith. But
yes, they
have to pay 3 or 4 players, and whether you're going to get the money's worth out of Kreider if you pay him 7.5. That may be the calculation that they're.
If they go 7.5 by 6, I think that's a palatable deal for the Rangers side. I don't know if it's a palatable deal for Kreider's side, and that's where the problem could be because there could be a team out there in the summer that is just going to give Kreider 7 years because they need to get a Chris Kreider, and they don't care about the last 2 years, however productive he might be. And that's the worry for a team like the Rangers is, they're trying to do this a certain way and slot guys in, and there could be other teams out there who have space that say, you know what, we don't care.
Right. And I think that's very possible. There's a couple of other things too that are kind of interesting going on right now. So, the other rumor that I was chasing this morning was that the supposedly asking for price for Kovalchuk, I guess per Pierre LeBrun. Shoot, I got to take this call, guys. I'll be back.
All right,
sorry.
Just take yourself off the screen. Come back. I'll move you off the screen. One sec.
Thanks.
Okay. I heard LeBrun report that the asking price for Kovalchuk was a 2nd-round pick. I think that's probably reasonable based on the way Kovalchuk has played with the Canadiens and because he's a $700,000 cap hit.
Oh, you mean the way he's played with no pressure on him, with no playoff pressure, getting all the time in the world on the ice? I'm not giving a second-round pick. Sorry.
Well, I mean, but that's what they're going to ask. And I think it's more than likely they get it because, and this is the thing, there's no way the LA Kings could have asked a second-round pick for Kovalchuk because he had a $6.25 million cap hit. But Montreal can because that contract was terminated and he's making $700,000, and teams like Pittsburgh or Washington or contending teams that are looking for a little more offense can fit that. And the thing is, if he doesn't work out there, Russ, then they can very easily say, okay, you're a scratch, and it doesn't hurt them because he's making $700,000. So there's a lot of flexibility there with Kovalchuk. If he doesn't work out, they've only given up a draft pick. But it's, a second is nothing insignificant.
I mean, but here's the amazing thing. He literally has only been in the playoffs 3 times.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Once with Atlanta when the Rangers swept him,
yeah.
Twice with New Jersey, and he got to the Cup once.
Yeah.
The New Jersey run was a nice one. The year before, he was 6 points in 5 games. Right. With Atlanta, when he was really a young, good, great player at 23, 2 points in 4 games.
Yeah.
It's not like we're talking about a Butch Goring kind of playoff performer here. And at the age of 36, am I now going to suspend belief that he could get me, I don't know, a half a point a game? Like that's what I'm looking at, because if I'm given a second round pick, I better get a half a point a game at the very minimum out of this guy.
Yeah, I mean it's a hefty price to pay for secondary offense. Maybe it's made conditional. I don't think Montreal is in a strong. I mean, I'm not sure if Montreal is going to say, we're going to. It makes no sense for them to keep him. He's an asset. And they may want to re-sign him next year. He may love it there, and they always have problems getting players to stay there. So, I think a conditional second makes more sense. If they push it maybe and a team loses a top 6 forward and they think that Kovalchuk at his point in his career can fill in until the end of the season, then
let me read you another, what some people might call a less significant stat, but when you're in the playoffs matters. Mm-hmm. And it mattered to the Kings. So with the Kings, he had 9 points in 17 games, right?
Yep.
But he only had 9 giveaways and 5 takeaways because the Kings demand that you play defense. Montreal's a mishmash, right?
Sure.
He has 2 takeaways and 14 giveaways.
Yeah. In Montreal, I'm sure in Los Angeles they're expecting him to play at both ends of the ice. In Montreal, they're so desperate for offense, they're probably saying concentrate on scoring.
Right. So now the next team he goes to, it's going to be back to what he was doing with the Kings. You have to play this way, a certain way, and he is a lot less effective offensively when you ask him to do that.
And that's a consideration that a team trading for him has to make. I mean, if a team like St. Louis, say Tarasenko has a setback and they need another winger, and they have limited cap space to do that, then Kovalchuk is an option. I mean, it's all a question of what his role is. Remember, like when Jágr went to Boston, I think he was playing with Krejci.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, so he was even at 36, 37 years old, Jágr was playing top 6 for a team that went to the Stanley Cup final.
Right.
So, if you bring in Kovalchuk and you're saying I want you on the 4th line, that's not going to work because he doesn't work hard enough to be on the 4th line. He's not an energy guy. He's a skill guy who's lost a step or two, but he still can score. He's still got talent. So it's all a question of what role. Now, Bardicus says, Columbus. I don't know if Kovalchuk and Tortorella work in terms of
That's a big fat no.
Yeah, probably not. But I'm saying, you're going to see Columbus because they have all that cap space.
Right, but they could get a more expensive, higher quality player.
And probably cheaper because they can take on the cap hit.
Right.
Let's. X said he may be back, so he had to talk to some doctors. But we'll talk about some of the games last night. You were in Philadelphia at the Devils-Flyers game. It was a 5-0 drubbing by the Devils.
They just dominated them.
Yeah, this is. I mean, that's a little bit surprising. We had a couple of these upsets. We'll talk about the Red Wings and the Sabres in a few minutes, but this is not good. I mean, it's not fatal to the Flyers' playoff plans, but still, when you play a team that is well below you in the standings, that team that is, I think everybody thinks are going to be big sellers at the deadline. You have to win that game, and that wasn't even close, Russ.
Well, when your coach says he should have denied the power play opportunities they got because the Devils were getting so many great chances, that's telling you something. Now, this was a game where they were completely disorganized. This is a game where they were completely unprepared to play the Devils. They were completely unprepared.
Right.
The Devils, there were 2 or 3 odd man rushes on 2 power plays, 2 in a row, and on one of them, Elliott had to stop 2 shots, one after the other, because they were so deep in their end, nobody could get back. On one of them, somebody next to me said, when you have James Van Riemsdyk trying to back check, this is what you get. And it's true. And so that was telling. The Flyers had a bad change on the power play that gave up a scoring chance to the Devils. Like, when do you see that? So this was completely checked out. They gave up a goal to Blake Coleman 13 seconds in, and Vigneault completely blamed it on Claude Giroux, who, by the way, has not had a point in, I believe, 13 games now.
Wow.
And when they play him at center, they are sapping his offense. Right now, at the point he has in his career, when you're asking him to play a complete two-way game, you are killing his offense. So, of course, they're looking for like a third-line center on the trade market, and I don't think it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be Nolan Patrick. I don't.
And this is just to interject for a second.
Yeah.
This is a bad market to be looking for centers. After Pajot, there's not much out there, and Ottawa's Pajot might be a perfect fit for Philadelphia in terms of his abilities. I think he's a good third line, maybe an okay second line, but a good third line center. But Ottawa's expecting a first round pick and a top prospect. I don't think Philadelphia wants to pay that for a rental. But after that, there's not much out there in terms of centers.
No. And, of course, Philly, if there's a tiebreaker, loses in the row. And we've talked about that early in the season. So this is something where people could, sort of just say, it's just a bad game, flush it. Problem is, you're going to Washington, and that's Philly beat them the last time. And so I'm pretty sure at home the Caps are going to want to really gain revenge here. I'm sure Philly will play a lot harder, but this was a game where your big players didn't step up. They say all the right things in the locker room. That's fantastic, but you need to show it on the ice. Van Riemsdyk at one point had an open shot at a net, and he couldn't even corral the puck in. Gostisbehere late in the game, this is his first game back, fell down at center ice and gave up a goal to Miles Wood, who just, of course, probably the worst guy to fall down in front of. And he just gets the puck, goes in, and gets one of his 2 third-period goals unchallenged. So Brian Elliott had no support in front of him. That was one thing. Carter Hart's not even, we're not even hearing when Carter Hart is exactly back yet. So this is a bad time right now for Philly because this is what we talked about. Because right now it's Alex Lyon and Brian Elliott. You're waiting for Carter Hart to come back. But when he comes back, you're now asking a second-year goalie to get hot and run a team into the playoffs when a lot of regular season goalies would have trouble doing that, especially with the defense in front of them. And the other quandary for the Flyers is, okay, so now do you bench Shane Gostisbehere because he had a terrible game, or do you play him because he's coming back off an injury and he has to get his timing, and if you want to trade him, you're going to have to do that. Because if you bench him a couple of times during this 2-week look-see, and everybody did a ton of scouts there, you're going to kill his trade value. So this is another situation where it's tough. And, and Phil Myers, for all the plus minus and good shots, he had some bad turnovers too. So this is where I feel like the Flyers should not have set themselves up or the fans up to say, We've made these moves. We believe we're a playoff team. I think they should have just let the season ride.
Right. Keep the expectations low.
Right. Kept the expectations low. I wouldn't have done that extra move for Braun, so I would have had cap flexibility, but whatever. That's beside the point, and definitely wouldn't have done Stewart, right? I mean, we know that. But even if I did all of that, I would have kept the expectations low, and they didn't. So now yesterday, the boos were raining down the same way they were raining down in Buffalo.
Well, the Richard in the chat was saying, they could always bring Frost back up. Well, the talk of them going for a third line center probably leads me to believe that they think that as talented as Frost is, he's 20 years old, that he's not ready to be the third line center. And remember, third line center is a checking role. It's not an offensive role. And he's an offensive player. He's a very good playmaker, but he's young and he still probably needs to build up.
You could put Frost second and you could put Hayes on the third.
Sure.
Again, now you're asking Frost to take faceoffs against some real sharks in the league.
Right.
And as an example, like Jack Hughes was getting beat pretty well by Giroux on faceoffs. Giroux's one of the best faceoff guys in the league.
Yeah.
You will do that with Morgan Frost, and that's not going to help him develop.
And that means if you're playing in a playoff series against Philadelphia or against Pittsburgh, you're matching Frost up against Malkin, or Washington, you're matching him up against Kuznetsov. I mean, that's not fair to him. It's not a good thing to do. Now on the Devils side, I mean, Blackwood makes 46 saves. I
will tell you this about Blackwood too. I haven't seen him sort of in like workout gear since the combine. His legs are even bigger than they were. Like, this guy is a physical marvel in the sense that, and apparently he is gotten into better shape this year than he was last year, now learning how to play the position. But the thing, apparently, what I was told yesterday, the difference in Blackwood is now he used to do it all on physical strength and being able to outmuscle guys with loose pucks. And he had, a fair amount of skill, but now he's really learning how to play the position, and he's developing, and it's nice to see, and Devils fans should be happy about that.
This might be like the hockey equivalent of taking your lumps like Glavin and Smoltz did in Atlanta for a few years until they became better pitchers, and he should continue to get the work, and I think he has a good chance of staying there number one. Now, there were a ton of scouts at the game last night,
12 or 13.
Yeah, and you have to think that they were probably mostly focusing on the Devils because the Devils will be sellers. We know that they're going to sell Vatanen. We probably know that they're going to sell Wayne Simmons. Now, I don't know about some of the other players, but I think you said Calgary and Toronto were in the press box.
They were.
Calgary makes a lot of sense for Vatanen because of the situation where Giordano. Treliving was very evasive yesterday.
I mean, also, look, we have to still say we don't know what their long-term plans are for Gaudreau. They could be looking at Philly for a Gaudreau deal.
Sure, it's possible, and that wouldn't satisfy their center situation, but it would satisfy, some scoring issues or bringing Gaudreau. I mean, and what team wouldn't want Gaudreau? But I would think that with Calgary and Toronto in the press box, they're probably focusing on the Devils and on their defense. It's a question of whether. And I don't think we mentioned this yesterday in connection with Toronto, the fact that when Kyle Dubas talked to the media at 1:00, he mentioned that Morgan Riley will be re-diagnosed next week, and that may determine how long it'll be before he can come back. And if he can't come back until the end of the regular season, then the Leafs will have his $5 million cap hit to spend. That would fit with what Vatanen is because his cap hit is less than 5. They could trade for him. I think the Leafs are going for non-rentals, but now they have the option to go for rentals if they think Riley is going to be out the rest of the regular season. So Vatanen might be on the radar. Yesterday, Pierre LeBrun reported that the Canucks may be in on Wayne Simmons depending on the health of Michael Furland, who's been on IR for a long while. How did Simmons look yesterday?
He looked okay. I mean, as far as being a scoring threat, I don't know. I think if you're getting Wayne Simmons now, you're getting him to be a shit disturber, and that's fine. He could certainly do that. He's in great shape still. His skating is okay. It's not great. He's still strong though, and so I think if you get him for that role and just if you get a couple points out of him here or there, that's fine. Then maybe, but like if you got him like Nashville got him last year and expecting him in front of the net and him to produce points, then I think you've got the wrong guy.
Yeah. Now, sorry, I wanted to look at this replay before we start talking about it.
I mean, I'm looking at Simmons right now, right? Like, so, last night he had no shots on goal in 14 minutes. On the year, he's basically 19 points, 5 goals, 3 on the power play. Yeah, and with Vancouver, we know that what Ferland was brought in for. He's a bigger player. He's an aggressive player. And we don't know. I still don't know why Ferland was brought in.
He was brought in for that, but you have to be on the ice for that to be effective. And you can't rip a guy for being hurt. I think he's, he'd be on the ice if he wasn't hurt, but they had to realize that was an issue with him going back to playing in Calgary and then in Carolina, that he had trouble staying on the ice. Now, that's one thing Simmons doesn't have is, he's a durable player and he's been that way his entire career. And if they think that Ferland is not going to be available, at least if there's any hesitancy of that, then Simmons might make a lot of sense.
I mean, it's a disastrous signing for one. And I knew it was a bad signing.
Yeah.
But this is disastrous. Now, he had played in the 70s game-wise and even played 77 last year. But to your point, always sort of playing banged up too.
Yeah.
Never got over the 40-point mark. And he got paid like a guy that is a perennial 20-goal scorer, which he's only done once. Yeah. So far for Vancouver, he's got 1 goal. 1.
In how many games?
14.
Jesus. Wow.
I mean, it's brutal. I mean, this is, you want to talk about horrible. It's bad, but luckily Vancouver hasn't needed him. That's the reality.
Yeah. All right, moving on to the other disaster, and this is a local disaster, not having to do with snow. The Buffalo Sabres, who lost. Now they remember after the All-Star break, going up to the middle of February, they had 9 home games in 10 games. This was looked upon before the break or at the break as their last opportunity to climb back into the playoff race because all these games at home. They have lost 4 of the 5 home games. Last night was, I think, the coup de grace. They were down 2-0. They fell behind 2-0 to Detroit. Came back, tied the game, but lost 4-3 in a shootout. They had started rookie Jonas Johansson, who he didn't look overmatched, but he only faced, I think, it was 17 or 18 shots in regulation.
Yeah,
and I think they knew that they had a young goalie there, so they had to play a little more responsible. But after the game, Russ, and I retweeted this last night. Sam Reinhart, how shall I say, jousted with Mike Harrington from the Buffalo News, and the reason that
I think there's a good reason.
Let me set it up first.
Yeah.
Okay. On Dylan Larkin's second goal, and that's what I was watching here in between. Reinhart. Now I don't know how deep into the shift it was, whether it was at the end of the shift or early on, but it's a 2-on-1 break where Dylan Larkin is heading in alone on Johansson, and Reinhart about at the blue line just stops skating. And Larkin scores the goal. And after the game,
Harrington dropped back and got away from the guy. If nothing else, if you're dead tired, fall in front of him.
Right. After the game, Harrington asked Reinhart whether he quit on the play. And Reinhart bristled at that and says, I'm not going to answer that question. And then he asked another question. He says, I'm not going to answer your question. So he got pissed off. He got pissed off at the question. He got pissed off at the insinuation. But your eyes don't lie to you. Unless you're gassed, unless you're out there for 2 minutes, he quit on the play.
Well, that's what he should have said. But obviously that wasn't the case, or Reinhart would have said that.
Right.
Harrington's right. Because, I was watching part of that game. I was shown that play, and I was shocked to see Reinhart do that. But again, we have now seen for the last couple of games, there are guys in the Sabres who have just checked out again. Like they've done this 2 years in a row now. Ryan O'Reilly was right. I was wrong to think he was overcritical and maybe a little rough. No, he was right, because now the same stuff is happening all over again. And even though Kruger has tried to change that culture, it hasn't worked.
Yeah, the only one, I mean, Eichel hasn't quit. Eichel's been phenomenal.
He never quits.
He's got 31 goals. But at the end of, I think it was the Montreal game when Montreal scored an empty netter last week, and they had lost. I think that was the second game of the 9 games. He took a baseball swing and broke his stick on the post. But essentially, I think it was a level of frustration, saying this team is not going to make
nobody
it.
does that when they're happy, Mike.
No, of course not. But what I'm saying is that, you know, Kruger has been credited for, you know, being able to reach these players. It's just you've got a group of players here, and this was the big mistake of Jason Botterill. And I said this last summer. They added to a group that was clearly dysfunctional and clearly not good enough. They added VC, they added Yoki Haru, they added Marcus Johansson, and they added Colin Miller. Colin Miller is an in-and-out player. You know, he's been healthy scratched a number of times. They've got players asking to be traded, like Zach Bogosian and Evan Rodriguez, who scored again last night. I mean, this is an ugly situation, and the fans have had it. And I get it, because, you know, I used to be a Sabres season ticket holder, not because I was a fan of them, but because I like to go to games. And it got to a point where I split the tickets up with friends of mine, and at a point where they didn't want any tickets, so it made no sense for me to get the tickets anymore. That's the general feeling in Buffalo right now, is until this team starts winning, and I mean starts not winning for 10 games, but winning month after month. I mean, there were the last game I was at, there were maybe 11 or 12,000. It's going to be less. People are.
Yeah. So here's games played for Zach Bogosian as a Buffalo Sabre: 21, 64, 56, 18, 65, 19. So the last 2 years, like last year, he took 93 shots. He had 3 goals. He had 17 takeaways, 46 giveaways. He's played 19 games this year. He's got 10 giveaways. That's hard to do. He's averaging 16 minutes in 19 games, which is equivalent of a little over 5 games worth of ice time. That's what he is giving them. Why is he playing at all?
He's playing.
Nobody is giving me a good answer why he's not in the press box. And I heard Harrington wrote he should be in the press box. And I agree with that.
He's playing because they're trying to trade him.
It doesn't matter. He's untradeable.
I know, but that's the reason he's playing.
I'll give it to you for a conditional 7th round pick in 2025, but I'm going to start bringing up some guys and seeing what I have, because it doesn't pay to play this guy.
I think what you're going to see is I mean, remember, they have 7 unrestricted free agents. 7.
Right.
The way that they're playing right now, and I'm not saying, you know, for nothing, I'm saying you should trade all 7 of them. Get a look at your kids down.
They won't trade all 7.
They won't. They'll I think at most they'll trade 4. I think they can get a decent draft pick for Sherry because of his Stanley Cup, you know, his experience.
Okay, but I'm going to stop you there. Stop getting draft picks. Get players.
Well, maybe they need players, because if you look at the roster of Rochester, you've got guys like C.J. Smith down there who are in their mid-20s. I mean, apparently they're not going to bring back Middlestat until
he's ready, and that's fine.
Right, and he's building up his minutes, and he's playing better down there. So I think that what they're looking for is to basically reset him and have him come back a little stronger and a little more ready for the NHL next year. But they really don't have a great deal of depth down in Rock.
No. And that's my point. Start packaging these deals. Have it be Sherry, and is Frolik a UFA?
Yes. So
put Sherry and Frolik together for a team that could use both those guys and get a player with some term on him.
Yeah, well,
that's what you need to do.
That's tough to do. That's $8 million in cap space.
I know, but it's doable if you work it and you retain salary, and that's what you need to do. Draft picks at this point are not helping them, and I'm going to tell you why it's not helping them, because there's something broken with their player development. If we go and look at their draft picks, a lot of these players are not bad players, but the only players that seem to survive and do well with the Sabres are the ones that are instantly ready for the NHL, like the Eichels, like the Dahlins, Olofsson did play in the minors, but he at least played in the SHL too. He's one of the rare ones. But unless they get a guy like a Dahlin or an Eichel, very few of these guys come up when you feel like maybe they should come up. You know, we could use Alex Nylander. There's so many of them. I mean, Brendan Gooley, everybody waited for forever. He's playing somewhere else. Like, it's just there's something wrong with their player development.
Well, and you look at Rochester right now, and Jean-Sebastian D is their leading scorer. He's 25. Zach Redmond is second. He's 31. Andrew Ogilvy is 24. He's third in scoring. Sean Malone, Lawrence Pilot. I mean, there's not a ton of.
Where's Asplund in that list?
Asplund has only played 18 games down there because he's been yo-yoed back and forth between the Sabres and Rochester.
That's my point with the player development right there.
Yeah, Tage Thompson is out for the year.
Right.
And I found this laughable. I realized that Pierre Maguire parachutes in to different markets and talks about and always talks glowingly, even though the team is the team. He loves to pump the tires. He loves to,
even if the team's playing like hot garbage.
Right. And he's like, well, the Sabres got a lot of young prospects coming, and he says they got Will Borgen down in Rochester. They got Jacob Bryson, and then he mentioned one other player, and Casey Middlestat. And I'm like, okay, that's about it, Pierre. I mean, you should have more than three, and that's about it.
With the level of play that they've had in the last with the level of play they've had in the last 5 years, they definitely should have more than that.
Yeah, and I know that some Toronto observers were watching that game because the biggest embarrassment was that game was on NBCSN.
Right.
Saying that Buffalo is hot garbage and their fan base deserves a lot better. And I agree with that. But the thing is, I joked, well, maybe they'll get the first pick overall again. They're Edmonton East, excuse me. They're Edmonton East. I mean, they get another first overall pick. They've got Dahlin. He's great. They got Eichel. He's a second overall pick. He's great. It's not going to be this problem is not going to be solved by one player.
No, but they have some players. Like I like Matej Pekar. He's playing right now in the O. He's a point a game. I do like him. We know Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is going to be there in a couple of years. Bryson is pretty good. But again, they made some weird picks too. Like I was never a Cliff Poo fan. And
they traded him in the Skinner deal.
Right, and they traded him in the Skinner deal. And, I always liked JT Compher. They traded him.
Yeah.
Alex Nylander's gone.
Yeah.
Like it's just so when you start looking at what they have for the last 5-6 years of drafts, Brendan Gooley's gone. Mm-hmm. They don't have much.
Yeah, and the thing is, and then we'll move off the Sabres here, the guys that they traded these players for, okay, they traded O'Reilly. Berglund is gone. He went back to Sweden rather than staying in Buffalo. Sobotka is out for the rest of the year with a knee injury, and he is a UFA, so he won't be back. Tage Thompson separated his shoulder or dislocated his shoulder. He's out for the year. They trade Gooley in the deal to get Brandon Montour. Montour has underachieved this year for them.
Yeah.
I just heard yesterday from Elliot Friedman that Montour might be on the block. So is Colin Miller, who they traded a second-round pick for. He's been.
And what did they get for O'Reilly?
What's that?
What did they get for O'Reilly?
They got Thompson, they got Berglund, they got Sobotka, and a number.
Berglund left,
and a number 1 and 2. And then
Sobotka was lousy,
right? And then they flipped the number 1 for along with Gooley for Montour,
which hasn't been good.
Yeah, so I mean, all those moves have now and when they traded for O'Reilly, you've got when they played Colorado, JT Compher was in the lineup.
Yeah, Zadorov too, right? I mean, Zadorov was in that deal too, right?
Yeah, Nikita Zadorov scored a goal against the Sabres, and he's not an offensive defenseman. So, yeah, it's a cluster effort.
So what are we talking? 9 years now without the playoffs?
Yeah, 2011 was the last time he made the playoffs. I mean, but the problem is
that the longest drought in team history?
Yes. Will this be will this be the fire to fire Jason Botterill? I mean, it's gotten so bad that we said that if they had another year as bad as last year, that he was in trouble.
Right, I know we said that.
We said that, and they are having that year. I mean, they are, right now, they were after the long 10-game winning streak in November of last year. They were the worst team in the NHL. They were 31st overall. And right now, I don't know the record specifically, but they have to be in the bottom 5. So,
I mean, if they were to fire a guy like Botterill, I would have to look at somebody who has a really good track record in the draft and other things. We always talk about Michael Fuda, guys like that.
Yeah.
I would have to look for something like that because that is the only way this team is going to get straightened out is with better drafting and better player development.
Yeah, and remember, this team has $22 million at least in cap space for next year. But the problem is,
I don't even want them to spend it. Like at this point, I have no.
No. That's what I'm saying. The problem is they would have to overspend to get players to come here. Right. So it's probably better not to spend it and use it on re-signing your players like Dahlin and building through the draft. But that the problem is, Russ, is that this fan is fed up, and they have every right to be. All right, let's touch on a couple other games, then take some questions and end the show. Let's see here. San Jose beats Edmonton 6-3. I watched this game. Edmonton was up 2-1. Then
who was in net for Edmonton, Mike?
Oh, was it Mikko Koskinen? I'm just checking right now.
I don't know. That's why.
It's Mikko Koskinen. 6 goals on 31 shots. Oh,
it's a shame X not on the show to talk about this one.
Darn. Yeah, no, but I think it was Draisaitl that took a high sticking double minor on Erik Karlsson, and Edmonton. McDavid scored an unbelievable goal to put them in the lead. It was Gagne and McDavid 1-2, and then the Sharks scored 5 goals in a row. So I mean, again,
how many points are the Edmonton Oilers from being bounced in the playoffs? 1 point.
Right now, Edmonton is in 3rd place in the Pacific with 62 points. Calgary is at 60. They're in the second wild card. So you were talking about 1 loss and you're out of the playoffs for a team that's got 2 of the top 5.
And then Arizona's at 61. So if they get bounced into the wild card,
right. They're both Pacific teams. So there's going to be head-to-head matchups against these teams over the last 30 games of the season.
What was their lead when they were at their height this year? Was it like an 8-point lead?
What, Edmonton?
Yes.
Oh, it wasn't that much. I think it wasn't
that much.
No, remember that division's been tight all year.
Yeah, I guess it's probably like a 4-point lead.
But the fallacy that they are a playoff team in that division, you can't say that about any. I mean, there's 3 automatic spots, but everything is so tight. They lose 3 or 4 games in a row, they're in deep trouble. And this is a team you should beat, a team that is, I don't know, I can't say they quit, but they're just dysfunctional this year. They, for some reason, have not been able to really get on the straight and narrow. So that's a devastating loss.
I will say this. The 2 things that stand out when you look at some of the little numbers here, they're only a +2 differential. Now, I'm sure they were a minus last year, but whatever. They're only a +2, and if you're looking at being a playoff team, usually it's got to be better than that. And they're only 13-9-4 at home.
Yeah.
13 wins at home is actually Calgary, Arizona. They've got the same amount of wins at home. Mm-hmm. Winnipeg and Chicago are only 1 off from that. San Jose actually has more home wins than they do.
I think this game was in Edmonton too. So
that's what I'm saying. They're not playing great at home.
Yeah. So and you know what? And you can one of many reasons you may point to Toronto missing the playoffs is the fact that their record at home, if you calculate loser points as losses, which they are, they're under 500. They've lost more
games at home.
Yeah, and that's ridiculous. The Coyotes lost to the Hurricanes 5-3. The Coyotes were leading in that game for most of it, and the Hurricanes, I believe, they had 3 goals in the second and 2 goals in the third to rally. Svechnikov and Aho were the point guys there. Nashville beats Calgary 3-2. The Wild beat the Canucks 4-2. That's that the tight race in the Pacific. You have to beat a team like Minnesota, is down in the standings.
But they're not that far down. Like they're not that
far down, but
yeah, they're competitive.
The one that stood out. Oh, you have to give because I'm sure Joe Morello will lose his mind if I don't mention that the Islanders came back from a 3-0 deficit to beat the Kings 5-3.
But it's still the Kings,
right? And Kiefer Bellows did score his first 2 NHL goals,
right?
Now, that's got to be good news for the Islanders because
it is good news, and that's why I scoffed the other day when Kevin was saying and you were saying that they're showcasing him. They need him. They should not be showcasing him.
Well, I did say the possibility that they might be actually bringing him up to take a look to see if he's ready for the NHL, so they didn't have to make a trade, or they could trade somebody else to get what they think they need, because I still think they need more offense. Now, they put him in a position yesterday. They played him with Brassard, and I see one of the goals Anders Lee assisted. So they put him on the line with Anders Lee. Then
that's not going to last, but he can produce a little bit. I would not be showcasing him. I just would go out and get somebody, and right now, because he's a good physical guy too. That's a good win. Yes, it's against a lousy team, but if they'd have lost, we'd have said they lost to a lousy team, so it's a good win.
Right. Well, that's the narrative of today. Teams that are in the playoff race losing to lousy teams. Now, this is not a lousy team, but this score did stand out. The Golden Knights beat the Florida Panthers 7-2. Bobrovsky gives up. Now, Florida is not good defensively.
No, but we know that.
And that's apparently driving Joel Quenneville a little batty.
Oh, of course it is.
Yeah, and from what the talk is, Talon is going to be looking for some defensive support before the deadline, which may be the reason why you hear Hoffman's name out there, because they don't have the cap space to do anything. So they may trade Hoffman to create the cap space to be able to bring in a defenseman.
Right.
But 6 goals on 29 shots for Bobrovsky. If you look at Bobrovsky's stats, he's not having a good year. And I don't know if you can blame that on him or blame that on the defense, but he's not having a good year.
I'll say this, though. At least Quenneville's got Matheson down from a -24 to a -1.
Okay. Okay, we'll take some questions.
Well, he only has 16 points. Like, how much are they paying him?
Matheson under 5.
But for 16 points. He's
going to end up being a 25 to 30 point defenseman, and they're paying him almost $5 million.
Here are his last 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
17, 27, 27, so far 16.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What am I paying for here?
I wouldn't have paid him. I wouldn't have signed him for 8 years.
No.
Okay, let's see. Questions in the chat. Let's see here.
I'm not saying he's a horrible defenseman. I'm just saying I wouldn't have paid that.
Right. Bardicus is asking, is Arizona a playoff team? I think somebody else asked, is Taylor Hall a jinx? Of course.
No, he is not a jinx. And they are a playoff team if Darcy Kempner stays healthy the rest of the year.
Yeah, and he came back and then he went back on the IR. So
right. That's the problem.
Yeah. Now, Anthony DeMio in the chat, he says, what will Eichel bring back in a trade? Eichel's not being traded.
He's not being traded.
Yeah, but the thing is, and we've talked about this before, and we can talk about this in the context of McDavid. How long will these guys bear up through the failing teams around them?
You might be able to trade Jack Eichel for the deed for the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's possible.
There you go.
And this way they can keep him in the United States instead of playing more games in London.
Yeah, will they be able to put tarps over the upper deck at the KeyBank Center? Okay, let's see here. I saw a good question here. Hold on. Who could the Isles target to grab more offense? Who could they move to get a deal done? Jonathan S. asks. Well,
they could try for Kovalchuk. Lou has had some success with him,
and that could make sense because that's a low risk.
That's a low risk. You could get him for Here, I'll give you a player. Hold on.
Well, while you're looking, I'll just say this: Elliot Friedman was asked about a number of players like Honka and Puljujarvi, and the name of Ho-Sang came out, and he said that the Islanders are having trouble finding a deal that would make sense for them. You're not going to get full value for Josh Ho-Sang.
Right.
You're not. Because
no, they're not.
Because you've depressed his value by screwing around with him. So just move the guy.
Yeah, I'll give you Otto Koivula, who I still think has some promise. He's 6'4", 219. He's 21 years old. He's only into his second year in the A. Not having the best year, but last year he had a great year. And a conditional second, meaning, based on if there's a re-sign and all those kinds of things for Kovalchuk. And I think Montreal would do that because they would get a player and they would get a potentially decent pick, and at least the Islanders would get some more offense, because it is going to be hard for the Islanders to add offense, because I still think they need to add a defenseman. Like, they're not set on defense since Pelech went out.
Right.
And they sent Aho down, the other Sebastian Aho.
Yeah.
We always have to say that, the other Sebastian Aho.
Yes, the defenseman Sebastian Aho. El Guapo asks, what can the Kings get for Alec Martinez? From what I heard, and this is not information that I got specifically, but information hearing through LeBron and through Friedman, the interest in Martinez has picked up dramatically over the last week or so, probably because of injuries and other situations. He can play left, he can play right. He's got another year. So those are factors that will increase his value. I would think that the Kings would probably get a second-round pick and
I've got at least a second. They might get a second and a third, like a conditional third.
Yeah.
Because remember what's his name for the Flyers? Kimo Timonen got 2 seconds, didn't he?
Yeah, but that was Chicago, and that was a specific situation. I don't know if anybody is going to be as desperate as. Remember, I think Philadelphia retained half of his salary, so they overpaid because of that, because Chicago was so up against the cap.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. People are saying in the chat, Cody Cece's out a month minimum. That was basically what was reported yesterday by Dubas.
Mike says they won't miss him, so
yeah, he's got a high ankle sprain. The question is, and I don't know if it's been announced yet, whether they've called up Liljegren. They're right now at 6 defensemen. I would assume they're going to call up Liljegren and play him.
They're doing that all year, though.
Right, and they did, but then they played him one game and then sent him back. The problem is that Sheldon Keefe had Martin Marincin in the minors and trusts him to be a penalty killer. So I guess they'll eat his foibles 5-on-5, which is possibly being the worst defenseman in the league, 5-on-5, to have him help out in the penalty kill. Right now, their penalty killers were probably going to be Muzzin and Justin Hall, and that's top penalty killers. You have to have other defensemen go out there. That means Travis Dermott and Rasmus Sandin on your second pairing killing penalties. That's just not, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
What even is the full value of Ho-Sang? Bardicus asks.
At this point, you're really talking about like a third round, fourth round
pick. Yeah, exactly.
And he's worth more than that, but not when he has nothing statistically to show for it. Let's see, how's he doing in Bridgeport? Jake in the chat says Marincin is an LD. They've played him on the right side before when they've had to. I would think tonight against Anaheim they would call up Liljegren and play him with Sandin because they play together with the Marlies all year. I think that would make sense. But Jose's got 6 points in 8 games.
Yeah, I mean, he's a talent. He's a flake, but he's a talent.
Yeah.
So, if the Leafs get one more player from the Kings, will they be the Maple Kings? That's great. Oh God, is Anthony Duclair on the trading block? I don't think so, but people are saying that he is, and I don't get it. Unless people think that he's a restricted free agent. He's arbitration eligible unless they think the Senators won't want to pay him for a really.
That's probably what's going on here. He finally has a really great season, and now he's on in a franchise that can't pay him. Like this guy, if he had any luck at all, it's crazy.
Hey, maybe Columbus will trade for him. Okay, all right, good show. We will be back on Monday with another.
Oh, one last thing.
Yes, go ahead.
So I ran into Chico Rush yesterday, Glenn Chico Rush, and we had a nice conversation about the 80s Islanders and how I used to fear for my life if I went into the Coliseum with a Ranger jersey on, but I would do it, and I did it in the playoffs. How that place used to have amazing atmosphere back in the 80s, and while the Coliseum looks nice and it's been redone, we both agreed, and I haven't been there yet, but they'll never be able to recreate that atmosphere, unfortunately. Like, that's just – I don't know if they'll ever get it back. Maybe in the new building, if they continue to build on their winning ways, that'll come back. But it's right now that, we both were like, yeah, that was pretty great. And I was saying it from a perspective of a team I hated, but I had to respect the fans and the passion that was there.
Every time I think of Chico Rush, I think of I can't remember the exact year, but it was probably late 70s or early 80s. But there was a bench clearing brawl between the Bruins and the Islanders, and it was Cheevers and Gilles Gilbert as the goalies for the Bruins, Billy Smith and Resch for the Islanders, and the bench clearing brawl, and all four goalies were sort of like skating, like they were all holding each other, skating around in a circle, looking like they were going to fight, but basically it was like, okay, let the other guys fight, we'll just skate around in circles. There was no punches thrown. It was just the four goalies like on an island somewhere just skating around in circles.
And I met Gilles Gilbert like 4 or 5 years ago at the Toronto Expo. He's a cool guy too, actually.
Yeah. All right, good show. We will be back on Monday with another edition of the Hockey Buzzcast. For Eklund, for Russ Cohen, I'm Michael Agello. Thank you for watching, and remember, without the buzz,